Hello, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. Our Spotlight Politics team on police misconduct settlements, Chicago teachers lobbying lawmakers, and much more. A massive restoration project at Palos Preserves, and the highly anticipated WNBA season tips off today. What to expect from the Chicago Sky with a new coach and a new roster. And now to some of today's top stories. Visitors to the Museum of Science and Industry will soon notice it has a new name, the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry. The museum rolled out the name change today, which also comes with a $125 million gift from Citadel founder and billionaire philanthropist Ken Griffin. The donation, which was announced back in 2019, is the largest in the museum's history. Griffin used to be Illinois' richest man until he moved to Florida a couple of years ago. Now he's Florida's richest man. The museum says the donation allows it to launch several new experiences, including the Griffin Studio, which is a digital space, as well as the premier exhibition, Notes to Neurons. This Sunday will be the first official day under the new name. To celebrate, the museum is offering free admission. And of course, there's more of this story on our website. Daley Plaza is becoming the home of dueling demonstrations today. Chicago's Jewish community gathered to celebrate Israel's Independence Day with a flag-raising ceremony. Organizers honor the hostages taken during the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. Security was tight at today's gathering, though, where pro-Palestinian counter-protesters also demonstrated to protest Israel's military response in Gaza, where thousands have been killed. The demonstrations come as protests against the ongoing war in Gaza have broken out on college campuses across the country, including in Chicago. Budget watchdog group Civic Federation says it approves of Governor J.B. Pritzker's proposed state budget. The organization says it supports the state's improved financial condition, making statutorily required pension payments, and its proposal for a 100% pension funding goal. But the group warns it's concerned with spending pressure points in the coming budget year with a projected slowdown in revenue growth with growing spending needs. It's also concerned about the impact on local governments if the grocery sales tax is eliminated, as well as the fiscal and operational crisis facing transit systems in northeastern Illinois. Chicago residents in need of an ID card might find it easier to get one now that the city is rolling out an appointment system to meet demand. City Clerk Ana Valencia says the two-phase plan includes an online appointment system, allowing residents to sign up to apply for the municipal ID with proof of residency and identity. The clerk's office says the program has been in high demand since launching 6 years ago and since tens of thousands of asylum seekers began arriving from the southern border. The second phase of the program will launch this summer, allowing residents to apply for the City Key ID online and receive it through the mail. The ID is free, and there is no fee to schedule an appointment. Up next, lawmakers debate the governor's budget proposal. Our Spotlight Politics team on that and more right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
The city treasurer faces an additional $10,000 ethics fine. Illinois lawmakers debate the governor's nearly $53 billion budget proposal, and hundreds of Chicago teachers are expected to skip school tomorrow, kinda. Here with all that and more is our Spotlight Politics team, Amanda Vinicky and Heather Sharon. Hey, gang. So let's start with these police misconduct issues. Viewers might remember the 2021 case of Irene Chavez, who died by suicide while being held at the 3rd District Grand Crossing Police Station. That's, of course, on the south side. Heather, what's our station? WTTW was able to get a hold of a letter highlighting the dispute over how the officers responsible for Chavez should have been disciplined. Why does it matter that the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, or COPA, and the police brass couldn't agree on how to discipline those officers that they disagreed if they failed to keep Irene Chavez safe.
So COPA determined that 8 officers should face lengthy suspensions of 6 months or termination because they failed to take good care of Irene Chavez while she was in custody. And she ended up, as you said, dying by suicide. Now, interim police superintendent Fred Waller, who was in charge at the time, said that was excessive and punitive. And he said that officers should be suspended for no more than 60 days and in some cases for as few as 7 days. Now, that means that it will ultimately be up to the Chicago Police Board to decide sort of how this all shakes out. But this is part of sort of a larger dispute between the police department and the lead misconduct agency about how to hold officers accountable for misconduct, which is really the central case of the consent decree and has led to decades of scandals and brutality. And there is really just the fundamental question of whether the Chicago Police Department and its agencies are capable of holding officers accountable for serious misconduct.
And as you were speaking, Heather, of course, we were looking at video of Fred Waller when he was serving as interim superintendent. Of course, he is no longer the superintendent of CPD. Let's switch to Springfield for a bit, Amanda, because the governor is trying to get his near $53 billion state budget approved. Are Democrats on board with this?
So it's still relatively early in the process, which is sort of a ridiculous thing to say, given that the budget has to be passed by the end of May. But you don't get a lot of the decisions really made, the agreements, until the end of the end. Legislators procrastinate even more than reporters, I promise. But he is having some reticence, it seems, from within corners. Certainly Republicans have reservations, Democrats do as well. The governor's office has put out a notice to state agencies to figure out a way to make do with $800 million less in the event that folks don't get on board with the revenue, the new forms of raising money that the governor had pitched back in the start of this year when he first laid out his budget proposal. So there's still very much negotiations going on and some additional pressures, particularly when it comes to funding schools.
Let's talk about schools, because lawmakers in Springfield will have, some school folks to contend with tomorrow. Hundreds of Chicago teachers are skipping school. It's an excused absence, though, and taking a road trip so that they can lobby their legislators. Why is this particular trip different from previous trips?
Well, in part because this is an excused absence. That's not something that typically you get. Teachers often, they're there in the classroom. You might have teacher folks who don't take vacations, don't take a day off during the school year. And so this is uncommon that they are getting paid to go to lobby in Springfield. And it is this Chicago Teachers Union, about 200 teachers, I'm told, or so, give or take. And then they will be coupled as well with Pedro Martinez, the head of CPS. I mean, this is not something that we have seen before, this unity between the district and the teachers union. Of course, it is different because now you have a mayor at the helm, the head really of CPS, who is in agreement largely with the CTU, even though they are negotiating a contract, and instead they're really going to battle with the state. So very unique that they are collaborating, unique that teachers are getting some time off paid for this, and that is also why this is stirring some controversy already. There's a press conference scheduled for tomorrow with Republicans who aren't happy that this is an excused absence.
Okay.
They're asking for money, by the way, Brandis. They want more money for CPS. That's the objective.
I thought they were just going for a good time. Okay, so Heather, Chicago City Council weighing whether to pay nearly $4 million to settle 4 lawsuits claiming Chicago police officers committed a wide range of misconduct, including 2 stemming from the unrests and protests after the police murder of George Floyd during the summer of 2020. We all remember. You've been tracking that cost to taxpayers. What is the latest? So
if these settlements are approved next week, that would bring the total for settlements and to pay outside lawyers to defend the city to nearly $7 million. The latest lawsuit would send about $500,000 to the family of a 15-year-old girl who was ordered to the ground by Chicago police officers during the unrest and then run over by a police car that was mistakenly left in reverse and not in park when the officer hopped out to address the unrest. So there is also another suit that would pay a man whose leg was broken during the unrest outside the Trump Tower. He suffered serious injuries, and there's nobody in the police department who can say why police officers used force against him, and that of course violates all of the rules governing the interactions with the public.
And so, getting tight on time and a lot to talk about. City Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin, Chicago's Board of Ethics imposed another $10,000 fine on her, having to do with the firing of 2 top aides. Now, this is on the heels of another $60,000 fine that she received in April. What's this latest one?
So this brings the total number of violations by Melissa Conyers-Ervin of the government ethics ordinance to 14 violations, including retaliating against 2 whistleblowers who told her not to use city resources for personal gain. She, of course, ran unsuccessfully for Congress, and she will eventually have to either convince the board or a judge to reverse these fines or dig deep into her pocket.
Okay, so and quickly, Amanda, one last bit from Springfield. Some Republican legislators are suing to block an election reform bill that Democrats fast-tracked, quickly passed a couple of weeks ago. The law bans a practice of slating candidates onto the ballot. Tell us a little bit more about
So
this.
These actually aren't legislators who are suing, they're candidates. They want to be legislators, and that's their whole issue, is that they say they are not going to have that opportunity because Democrats passed this bill really changing the rules of the game. If you think of an election as a game, of course, with very serious consequences, changing the rules of the game midway through. So they've filed this lawsuit petitioning that they should have the opportunity to run for office in the Illinois legislature.
Okay, Heather, I know you've had an interview with Mayor Johnson on his 1-year anniversary. What's a highlight or two that we should look out for when that drops?
Well, he remains very optimistic about the soul of Chicago, as we have heard him say time and time again. But he did acknowledge that he has suffered some unforced errors and high-profile defeats. And my article and my debrief tomorrow night will look at all of that and the big challenges facing the mayor in the months ahead.
Looking forward to both of those. Thank you. Spotlight Politics, Heather Sharon, Amanda Vinicky. We'll see y'all later. Up next, why the Palos Preserves looks like a tornado landed there. Right now, the Red Gate Woods area of the Palos Preserve system in southwestern Cook County looks like a disaster zone. The ground is littered with tree stumps and branches, the kind of destruction a tornado might wreak or a logging company might leave in its clear-cutting wake. In fact, the devastation is evidence of the opposite. The landscape is being brought back to life, and reporter Patty Wetley joins us now with more on this. Patty, so to the casual, untrained observer, this might look like carnage, but it is actually about restoration. Tell us how cutting down these trees is actually a good thing.
Well, these trees are actually an invasive shrub called honeysuckle, and it is all over the preserves there. It's absolutely choking out the forests and wetlands, so they are just chopping it down. They've already cut down about 200 acres as part of a 1,000 acre restoration project, $10 million. It's going to run through 2027, biggest by far restoration project Cook County Forest Preserves has ever taken on.
And
it's huge.
It's too bad. They've got a really sweet name too, honeysuckle
I know,
shrubs,
but
they've
they're
got to
nasty
go
when there's too many of them.
They're bad. So are the trails around the area of restoration, are they still open to the public, or are they closed while this is happening?
A lot of the heavy work is done in the winter time to minimize the impact on wildlife and the soil. So a lot of that clear cutting took place from like October to March. Now they're going to be going in and, you know, fine tuning some of the areas that they've already worked on, picking back up the heavy work over next winter. So, you know, I'm not going to say that there aren't going to be spots where they might be working, so you might want to check ahead, but, you know, I was walking around for 4 or 5 hours a couple weeks ago. So
and you managed to get through. And you got out as well,
Yes.
which is important. So beyond the process of cutting down these invasive species, what other work is going on?
Yeah, so I mentioned I was walking around for 4 or 5 hours, and some of that was because we were walking in circles because the signage is very hard to understand when like 3 trails come together and which way are you supposed to go. So that is also going to be part of this project. Like $5 million is going to the restoration. Another 5 is going to rebuilding the trails, some of which are seriously eroded, but they're also going to work heavily on the wayfinding and adding more maps and letting you know you are here, you're headed toward here, follow this. A lot better job than like brown, red, orange, which way am I going? Yeah.
Okay, all right. Forest Preserve's getting some love.
Yes, it's going to look amazing.
It's going to look amazing. All right, getting more user-friendly as well, it sounds like. Patty Wetley, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Patty's full story on our website. It's all at WTTW.com/news. Chicago basketball fans' hopes are sky high. See what I did there? As the WNBA tips off its 2024 season tonight with lots of star power. The Chicago Sky's new look team includes 2 first-round rookies, Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, and Teresa Weatherspoon as head coach. Now, the highly anticipated season already includes off-the-court controversies like chartered flights only being available for some teams and the ongoing debate over fair pay. Joining us now are Julia Poe, sports reporter with the Chicago Tribune, Cheryl Ray Stout, sports reporter with WBEZ Chicago, Carly Bell, host of No Limits, a Chicago Sky show on Marquee Sports Network, and sports consultant Sabria Whitaker, who founded Grow the Game, a nonprofit that aims to increase engagement and involvement in women's sports. Ladies, thanks for joining us. Good to have you. Cheryl, let's start with you, and let's start with the Sky before we branch out into some of the other stuff. Their first season games, first home game is Saturday the 25th. Right. What are you predicting for the season?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how it comes together because we don't know everything about the players. We have been at practices. We see a very spirited, very engaging team right now. They had 2 preseason games. One was we couldn't see, which is vote of contention.
We'll come back to. Yep.
And the other one, they had a great game offensively, defensively. But to answer your question, I don't know. I think they're going to be better. I think they're going to be a defensive team, but I think they're going to have some issues with their outside shooting.
Okay. Carly, Teresa Weatherspoon, first-time head coach for the WNBA. How do you think her leadership is going to affect the team?
I think it's going to be kind of the catalyst on what determines how good this team is going to be. She is a former player, also has experience in player development in the NBA, and that's just something that's going to translate well. And when you add in that new general manager and Jeff Pagliacca, you have 2 people with a player development background, and they're really one of the first WNBA teams outside of what we've seen the Aces do this offseason that's really focused on player development. So may not show up this first year, but give them a little bit of time, and this could be a team that's very much worth going to go.
And they've got some superstars. They've got Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. If I blend their names together, it's really cool. Although Cardoso is injured, Julia, how do you think their debut seasons are going to go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Camila having that early injury is never the way that you want a rookie season to go. Really unfortunate, but I think the projection is hoping that she'll be able to get back on the court sooner rather than later. I think it's a big growth year, and that's where, like Carly was saying, that's where that player development really comes in. I think it's going to be a great feeling for both of those players to have someone like Teresa Weatherspoon, like Jeff, who can really come in and just focus on getting them to be the best versions of themselves in that rookie year.
Sabria, tickets are going fast. Prices have climbed. They're in demand. Some have suggested maybe moving the team to a bigger arena like United Center for some of those in-demand matchups. Is that likely?
I mean, we're one of the few teams that don't share ownership, so that is a lot harder of a conversation to have. I know DC just made a switch, so it might be possible, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as other teams.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
Thank you. Just basically no. Okay. Okay. I appreciate the solid answer. So, Carly, the newfound buzz around women's basketball is what they're calling, of course, the Caitlin Clark effect, in reference, of course, to the popular Indiana Fever rookie. Is that fair, though, to other star players to only refer to it as the Caitlin Clark effect, or is it accurate?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because if you look at it, she didn't win anything. She has not won a championship. She won a lot of trophies. Congratulations, Naismith Player of the Year, all that stuff. Bravo. But I mean, Angel Reese is an actual, national champion. Camila Cardoso, national champion. And they are people that are also Angel Reese, the most followed player in the WNBA, period. It's more of the Angel Reese effect than it is the Caitlin Clark effect. And it's something that I believe that they need to give her due diligence and her flowers for.
What would you say are some of the other factors that have increased interest in women's basketball, and WNBA especially?
A lot of it has to do with a couple things that have happened in just the last few years. It wasn't until about 2021, 2022 that the women's game was allowed to use the term March Madness. That alone allowed social media growth and things in that regard. And it wasn't until just this past year that the entire women's tournament was actually broadcasted from the first round all the way up to the championship. We've never seen that. Candace Parker, Diana Taurasi, all of these legends and goats in the game never had their full college careers broadcasted, only from the Elite 8 on. So when you're allowing accessibility, which is something that the WNBA also needs to work on, but the NCAA did a lot of the work for the WNBA. They're the ones who got the eyes coming in, and if the WNBA can capitalize on it, then you can see that growth translate to the pro level.
Set up for that. So let's talk about what these players are getting paid, though, and their endorsements. Caitlin Clark's contract is a reported $338,000 over 4 years. Angel Reese's is something similar. Now, this is all compared to the #1 draft pick in the NBA, $55 million over 4 years. Sabria, is it fair to compare these starting salaries, apples to apples?
It's definitely not apples to apples. I mean, just considering when their league was founded and how much older it is compared to the WNBA. And then there's also the matter of the seasons, right? We're comparing October to May and May through October at the latest. So I think
so you're saying the women's season is much shorter?
Definitely much shorter. And so I think even just putting that into context when we talk about the salary and, you know, the average American getting $76,000 a year and they're getting $76,000 in like 4 or 5 months, I think looking at maybe National Women's Soccer League salaries would be a little bit fairer. So I think they're in a good spot for growth right now. And I think it's going to come when they renegotiate the CBA.
Well, we also hear, you know, like because the women's salaries here are so low, they have to go to Russia or Europe to keep playing so they can earn extra income for the rest of the year. Hence Brittany Griner. Julia, though, the WNBA's TV deal also worth less than the NBA's. What might it take to bring women's basketball financially up to par with men's?
It's kind of like what Carly was talking about. What we have seen, I feel like the question has always been, what is it going to take to get the women's game brought up to the same level of popularity? This year has given the most simple answer: just put the games on television. The interest has followed every single time. They are breaking every single record that could possibly be set by the men in viewership. And I think that's where the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, has to come into those negotiations with a really, really strong tack of saying, our product is as good, if not better in some areas, in terms of interest, in terms of time of year. This is what we can do. And that's where all of this starts. If they want to be able to pay the players, they have to start out by just being able to secure that money in that deal.
So a lot of these players, of course, though, they'll make more money on their endorsement deals as well, but that's not really the point, is it, Carly?
No, not at all. You want to be able to, at one point, like, I hate using the pay gap and all of that, but it is pretty obvious right now in the women's sports game. But the one thing to kind of go to Julia's point is, yes, they're getting the interest and the viewership there, but what you need to kind of worry about now is, are these people that are just Caitlin Clark fans? Are these people that are just Angel Reese fans? Or are these people who are women's basketball fans? Because you're going to continue that viewership for this year. Is it going to be sustained in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028? You have to continue to make these people and make these players way more accessible, because if you're able to tell their stories and be able to show them and humanize these players very, very well, then you're going to see that growth. That happened in the NBA with the growth of Jordan and LeBron. People knew about LeBron when he was 17, 18. People knew about Paige Beckers when she was 14, 15. People didn't know about all of these other girls until they hit about 19, 20. So it's all about that storytelling, and the more accessible that they make these women, the more consistent that growth in viewership will be as years pass on.
Cheryl, this is the first season WNBA teams are traveling on chartered flights rather than commercial, but it is unclear when all of the teams will have access to that. So far, just a couple have been able to fly private on their opening day games. What is the latest, and when will everybody get to fly
We don't
private?
know exactly. They're still saying that they have to work things out. I mean, it was interesting that they made sure that Caitlin Clark in Indiana got on a flight yesterday to go to Connecticut. They did get Minnesota on a flight to Seattle. The Sky had a flight commercial, and so did everybody else. So it sounds like this is still a work in progress. What bothered me about it, they knew that they were going to do this, and they didn't take care of it when they should have taken care of it, instead of being, piecemeal together at this point. And it also says to a lot of the other teams, why are you taking care of this one player and this one team and not the rest of us?
And the only reason they really took care of Minnesota is because they didn't want to have Cheryl Reeve light them up on Twitter again. So, I mean, you have to kind of really look at it. If you're going to, it's not just one team. There's 12 teams. And then that also goes with their social media plan. It's not just 1 or 3 teams, it's 12 teams. And you have to be able to give all 12 teams the same amount of coverage.
Sabria, on the endorsements, again, there's been talk about a racial double standard in some of these endorsement deals. What do you think of that? Is that happening?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's levels with race, colorism. We've seen a lot just in the last 24 hours with the release of the Skims campaign and the representation of femme presenting women more than mass presenting women. So there are a ton of layers that I think we need to have a serious conversation about with not just the league, but its partners, and start holding them accountable, because it doesn't actually represent the makeup of the league. And that's what makes the W such a great league.
So much more to unpack there. Okay. I also want to talk about this one, though. Julia, is the league ready for this? Like, does it have the infrastructure to manage this increased amount of scrutiny and demand?
I mean, I think the big question is any large organization ever ready for this level of growth? Like, the answer is typically no. And I think we've seen some of those growing pains, and I think there's going to continue to be growing pains. Obviously, the chartered flights are the best example of this, of it's a really good thing, right? And then just not quite being able to stick the landing on, okay, we got the money, we got $25 million to be able to transport these athletes, but we don't quite have a plan together. And I think the big thing here is just the league continuing to learn from those mistakes, being able to learn from those growing pains. And I think the more that they can kind of absorb that, the quicker they can learn that's what's going to allow them to kind of take the most and make the most out of this moment.
Okay. I would love to keep talking about this, but we got to go. My thanks to all of you for joining us. Cheryl Ray Stout, Sabria Whitaker, Julia Poe, and Carly Bell. Thanks, everybody. And that is our show for this Tuesday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news. You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10 for Chicago Tonight Black Voices. A look at Mayor Brandon Johnson's first year in office. And meet a man in prison for more than 25 years who still proclaims his innocence. Hear one last effort his lawyers are making to win his freedom. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, which is proud to honor founder and senior partner Robert Clifford, who has been named in Forbes' 2024 list of America's top 200 lawyers.